I'm Kat Moore, a Senior Channel Marketing Manager here at Akamai Technologies. Thanks so much for joining. This podcast is for Akamai's partners, customers, and anyone interested in learning more about technology trends and Akamai. Here we will talk about what's happening in the threat landscape, what organizations are doing to update their technology stack, and more. If you enjoy this podcast, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much, Jon, for joining the Partner Champions podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how long you've been with Akamai?
Yeah, sure, Kat. Thanks for having me. Glad to participate. So I came to Akamai through the acquisition of Linode back in 2022. It feels like it's hard to believe it's almost 3 years ago now. So prior to that, I was with Linode for a bunch of years, helping them kind of build out their revenue function and thinking about how do they move from being more of a self-service developer-based tool into more of a platform that can help industries and businesses of all sizes adopt compute. And so it's been a great journey. My focus now in the past kind of year or so since being part of Akamai is helping to build out the compute ecosystem in the channel side, particularly focusing on, how do we think about resellers with compute and what does that look like? Distribution is a big thing that we can look at across, different parts of the globe. And then lastly, but certainly not least, the service partner side of compute. Compute what we see in our hyperscaler peers such as AWS and Google and Azure. There's this really robust ecosystem of SIs and managed service providers that are working alongside those hyperscalers to help their customers get the most of the platform. And that's a massive opportunity for Akamai to go build, right? So that is definitely an area where we're focusing on. And it's been really exciting and a great journey so far, starting to build this out.
Awesome. So, you've had so much experience with the cloud industry. Can you give a little overview about Akamai Connected Cloud Platform and why it differs from other cloud platforms that you've seen out there?
Yeah, sure. In many ways, it's different, and in some ways, it also feels similar to people. So at its core, it's cloud, right? So we're providing kind of cloud primitives across, a distributed kind of network of locations across the globe. So we've got, classic infrastructure as far as VMs, GPUs. We now have VPUs coming out for, specialty compute. We've got a product of storage capabilities around block storage and object storage, a myriad of databases that are available, as well as networking capabilities across cloud. So kind of the typical building blocks you would see, including newer technologies like a managed Kubernetes service. And then we've got a large area that we've done around infrastructure as code, adopting things like Terraform and Ansible playbooks and different things that allow our customers to get the most out of the platform. We've got a large data center footprint, so we're blessed, right? Akamai's got over 4,000 locations on the globe, and that's really was the genesis for getting into cloud. And so through that, our customers came to us. A lot of the enterprises that people use every single day in their personal lives, knew that we could help get their customers close to, or I should say, sorry, they could help get their workloads close to the end user. And so that was kind of what got Akamai into the cloud world, was thinking about how do we harness the power of this network we've built for CDN and to power security, but now to help people get their workloads close to the end customer. And so that's really something that's really differentiating us from hyperscalers. And it's a situation I like to kind of say it's not it's not an or, it's an and situation, right? Like, we're not here just to rip business away from a hyperscaler. We really see in our vision that Akamai's cloud sits alongside. It's an adjacency in many ways to what you're doing with hyperscaler. All right, because hyperscaler can give you a lot of depth of compute and a lot of really specialized services. AWS, as an example, has over 200 services. But Akamai's focus is on how do we help you get as close to the end user as possible. Right? So they're really, really, synergies and working together from that standpoint. And for our customers, it's been really, really great. And so we've seen a lot of workloads come to us that are really latency sensitive. We have to get them moving quickly at the end user, or even egress centric, right? So media, for example, has been one of the first things that we saw really pick up on our platform is a lot of companies trying to figure out, how do I do transcoding closer to the end user, right? How do I improve the economics of a particular streaming workload, where maybe I can pass it savings on to my end customer or just improve my bottom line, right? So there's a lot of things that make sense in there and are driving us towards that differentiation.
You mentioned something about having to get workloads up quickly and latency reduction and getting close to end users. One thing that I've always heard as customers talk about Akamai Connected Cloud is how easy it is to use and how
Mhm.
fast they can get stuff stood up. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we were born out of a technology that was built for developers. And one of the things to know about developers is patience is at an all-time low, right? So we are definitely focused on maintaining that developer experience as we build out more enterprise capability. And that comes into, how do you deploy quickly? Deploying quickly also means having really easy to use tools, right? So that it's not hard for a developer to learn how to use the platform, right? So something that feels very natural to them. We also spend a lot of time thinking about and focusing on how fast does it take to actually spin up an instance, right? And so, how can you get things live in seconds versus minutes? And then how do you do that at scale across, well, for us, we've got, nearly 3 dozen data centers across the globe, right? So how do we help you spin up the same instance in Mumbai at the same speed that you would spin up a Kubernetes cluster in Chicago, for that matter, right? And everything we want to do is focusing on making it a great experience for those developers.
Thanks for sharing that. And, as you talk about like just developers having great experiences, there are some industries that you mentioned, talking about the media industry, having to do different spin ups of transcoding and stuff like that. There are a couple industries that I think you would probably say really love working with Akamai. Can you share a few success stories of how we integrate with every industry, but the specific industries that you've seen we've had a lot of success and have just made their day-to-day, their developers day-to-day, and their overall businesses day-to-day so much easier?
Yeah, so I would say it's actually a blend of some industry, but then also workloads that are industry agnostic as well. So I mentioned media. That's a great spot for us to be. We've got a great media customer base that's already trusting us for a variety of ways that we serve them. Compute was a natural extension into that. Another area that we've seen, which is, this is now industry agnostic, is really kind of real-time observability across the enterprise, right? And thinking about log aggregation and analysis. This is a problem that's really difficult to solve, and many of today's applications are throwing off a significant amount of logs, and it's hard to make sense of them. And so this is an area where our distributed cloud could come in and really help, put a solution in place to help people, go through that. Web performance is another one. So this kind of harkens back to some of the legacy aspects of where Akamai started, but really thinking about how do we drive the performance of kind of any transactional based sites, whether you're in retail or you're in hospitality or you're something in the tourism. Even some B2B sites are focusing on how to improve site performance for our end users. And then lastly, you can't have a podcast to talk about cloud and not bring up AI. And so, for us, looking at kind of the inferencing side of AI, and people are spending a lot of time focusing on their large language models to kind of train and build out kind of these workflows. But then you have to get them in front of the end customer, right? That's where the rubber meets the road. And so that's inferencing. And so how do we get that inferencing happening as close to the end customer, so that it can perform a lot faster versus having to do a round trip time to some data center, back in the middle of the country somewhere.
That's really good to hear. In terms of anything else that you would like to share about the Akamai Connected Cloud that you think is important, is there any areas that you think we should highlight?
So one of the things that I think we're seeing across all of Akamai is, we want to be channel led. We really want to be channel first and what we do. We have a great opportunity now with Akamai building computes as its third kind of product family. We're kind of building this from scratch. And so we're infusing that from the beginning. So, for the ecosystem that's out there, whether you're an ISV or you're a reseller or you're a service partner of some sorts, we are leaning into that ecosystem, and we are taking the approach of saying, hey, how do we incorporate opportunity for those areas within our business, right? And thinking about a product strategy that leads with ISVs as opposed to developing a lot of first-party products. How do we think about a services opportunity where we lead with a bouquet of service partners to help our customers get the most of the platform versus us doing it in-house.
Thank you so much, Jon, for taking some time out to talk with me today about all the great things the Akamai Cloud Platform has to offer. Champions, this episode is part one of a special two-part series about all things Akamai Cloud. Part two will be with Zach Putnam. He'll be describing more about our strategy with ISVs and how we are enabling partners to grow their cloud offerings. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like and subscribe.